What time is it going to start?
It says your meeting should start in a few seconds. Integrate the meeting. Host will let you in soon. Celebration of Billy Mitchell. Hooray. I'm not in yet. But he said they will. Now it says all right, I'm out of screen. I see me.
I don't see you.
Hi.
Well, there's 400 people. So look at the galaxy view. Up on the top.
I know.
What up, Larry? Man, I'm doing good, doing really good.
It's starting. I'm gonna
One
go.
day at a time.
Good, thank you.
Now, don't you gonna see? Listen, got you running, huh?
Hi, everybody. I'm
Hi.
Howard Randall. I'm president of the Jazz Journalists Association, and it's a great
All right,
pleasure.
Larry, I'm gonna call you. We're gonna talk.
No, you're gonna all get
Okay.
muted. If you don't mute yourselves,
The
the
what?
sound will be really funky. So
We
please,
have to
Right,
mute.
yeah.
you have to mute yourselves. Yes.
Yeah, it does sound.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm muted.
No, you're not. I can hear you.
All right. Okay.
I hit mute.
Oh, okay. All right. You got his dinner on the stove. What you cooking? What do you cook? Oh, that sounds good.
I'm trying to, get some variety, man. You run out of things to do.
Okay. So I
Come up
think
with
we're all
something.
here, and we're gonna start.
All we do is cook.
Jazz Journalists Association.
Man, you got that right. All right. Talk to you later. Okay.
And it gives me a lot of pleasure to start this time that we're going to celebrate jazz hero, Nica Award winner Billy Mitchell. The Jazz Journalists Association is working in collaboration with the Jazz Foundation of America,
Oh, well, let me
California
watch.
Jazz
Oh,
Foundation.
no, I'm gonna.
That's what I get from not using my notes.
I'm gonna watch.
And we have Edith Bronston, who's the president and founder of the
They're
California
talking now.
Jazz Foundation. The California Jazz Foundation also is honoring Billy Mitchell
California
with the
Jazz.
Nica Award. The JJA gave Billy, it's a
Oh,
jazz
wow. Yeah, a
hero.
lot of people in here now.
And if you
30.
were
Yeah, 30 you now.
you probably saw the picture of the 27 nationwide JJA Jazz Heroes in 24 different cities. So we are really lucky tonight to have DeeDee Bronston with us. She's going to talk a little bit, and we're also going to have DeeDee McNeil interview Billy. DeeDee is a writer as well as performer and works, you can read her work at LA Jazz Scene, among other places. So I'm going to introduce Edie, and she's going to take it away. We do need you to keep muted, otherwise the sound will be chaotic. So Edie can talk, and I'm going to mute, and I'm going to let some more people in. Thank you for being here, everybody.
Thank you, Howard. It's such a pleasure for me to be here on behalf of the California Jazz Foundation. And it's especially a pleasure for me to be here in partnership with the Jazz Journalists Association. It's just a wonderful thing. We've had a relationship now for over 4 years. And I am truly blessed because I was a jazz hero in 2016. And then I was a presenter to my good friend Barbara Brighton in 2019. And now I'm here to give an award to somebody who I admire and respect and love so much, Billy Mitchell. Let me tell you a little bit about the California Jazz Foundation. We've been around for 14 years, excuse me. We help California jazz musicians in need. To date, we have helped more than 325 musicians with just about everything that they need. we pay bills. Most of our grants go to housing as it happens, and that's been the situation from the very beginning. As I'm sure you all know, things are really desperate now in this situation that we find ourselves in. And I don't know of any jazz musician who isn't really hurting or is worried that they will be hurting soon. And our applications are increasing exponentially every day.
Jazz musicians
So,
that are hurting.
pardon me? So anybody who can help, the TV screen has our website, and we welcome any and all donations. And let me talk about Billy Mitchell, my friend Mitch. The criteria, I looked it up today because I can never remember the criteria, and they're alliterative and they're really clever. The Jazz Hero criteria are activists, advocates, altruists, aiders, and abettors. The heroes make a significant contribution to jazz in their local communities. And I don't know of anybody who fits that bill better than Billy Mitchell. I was always aware of Billy's musical talents throughout the years, but until we became real friends, I wasn't totally aware of all of his activism and what he does for his community. He has a total, complete commitment to the young people in his community. And that's not a passive commitment. I mean, he is in it a 150% minimum. For decades, he has done everything he can to help the young people from underprivileged, underserved areas of his community, and he has helped them with being served in the arts. And I once said to him when we first started talking, I said, what exactly does that mean? How do you screen these people to find the people you want to help? And I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, Edie, it doesn't matter whether they have talent or not. What matters is that they want to learn about the music and they want to play the music, and we are here to teach them. And God bless him. He has done that. He has enriched the lives of just countless young people. And I am so proud to be able to present him with this wonderful award, which means a lot to me, and I know it does to him as well. And I'm proud to call him a friend, and I'm so happy to know him. And Mitch, could you hold up the wonderful award? Mitch? Oh, there you are. Could you unmute, Mitch? And I am just, he's still muted. Okay. I am so happy. The award is much lovelier than it looks on the screen.
You can see right through it.
It's really difficult to see what it really looks like because it's glass.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So Mitch, on behalf of the Jazz Journalists Association and in partnership with the California Jazz Foundation, it is my great honor to present you with this award.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is very uplifting, especially at a time like this, just to be recognized and for an organization to formally just say, thank you for your work. We don't do what we do to make a living. We don't do what we do to make a lot of money. We do what we do because we've seen the need. We've seen the problems in our culture, in our communities, and we are committed to addressing those problems in whatever way we can. And I've been fortunate to align myself with committed people, talented people, and we've been about the business of touching young people, particularly those who have gotten the short end of the educational stick, the underserved communities. That's been our focus. But we try to touch every child that we can. And we've been fairly successful down through the years. So I thank you. I thank you for this award. It means a lot to me. And it's going to help us carry on.
And I just want to say that on behalf of the California Jazz Foundation, as Howard mentioned, Billy Mitchell is our 2020 awardee of the Nica Award for his total commitment for what he's done for jazz. And he was supposed to get that on March 25th, and we all know what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, April 25th, but that didn't happen. So we are planning a virtual gala, and he will get his Nica Award, and Johnny Mandel will get his Terry Award. And I hope that you'll all stay tuned so that we can give you notice for that as well. And now I'd like to introduce DeeDee McNeil. And DeeDee McNeil has become a good friend of mine too while we've been preparing for this. I've been a fan of hers a long time. DeeDee is from Detroit, and I don't know whether you all know this, but she was a contract songwriter for Motown, and she has written so many songs which have been recorded by musical luminaries. She is, in her own right, she's a jazz vocalist, she's a jazz pianist, she's a producer, she is a vocal coach, she's a storyteller, a poet, a playwright, and she's a wonderful journalist as well. So I can't think of anybody better than, oh, and she's an old friend of Billy Mitchell's. Can't think of anybody better than to do this interview than DeeDee McNeil.
Thank you so much for that. What an introduction. Well, peace, love, and good health to everyone. We're so happy that you all are here. You know, back in April of 2015, I wrote a feature article about Billy Mitchell. It was published by LAJazz.com. And the title of my article pretty much sums up one of these important aspects of Billy, which is his camaraderie and dedication to the community and to young people. The title of my article was Pianist Billy Mitchell Uses Music to Save and Enrich Our Youth. And back in 1999, America West Airlines awarded Billy the Jazz for the Next Generation Award. So Billy, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that award came at the Sedona Jazz Festival. Every year they gave an award to different musicians who have been actively supporting youth programs, and I happened to get it that year. We had been doing a lot of work in schools. We've been presenting programs since the early 70s. When I first came out here, I got with a group of musicians, and we were going around, traveling around to different schools. This might have been just a little bit before it became a thing, a popular thing. We worked for a organization called the Performing Tree. It was the Learning Tree, and then it turned into the Performing Trees. And so we went to a lot of different schools doing the jazz thing, and just educating our young people to a bit of the history, where it came and the impact that it has had on this country and the importance it is to the country, and how it has affected the music that they listen to today, the pop music. And so we did that for several years, and every time we had the opportunity to travel, we would offer these workshops in different schools, and consequently we had a chance to do these workshops in the Middle East and Japan and South America. And so we hope that we touched and influenced a lot of young people early on. This was back in the 70s and the 80s.
I'm sure you have. And you taught them about jazz with these programs. Now, you also worked with the NAACP ACT SO program. Talk to me about that experience.
Well, down through the years, I was invited to be a judge on a lot of the music programs. AXO was one. And I went to New Orleans and I was a judge for the musician competition. And it struck me because I saw a lot of talented young people. But for our young people, the presentation was not where I knew it could be. There were a lot of things that they did not know, just simple things about the psychology of auditioning. And they were competing in a lot of cases, especially out here, with young people that came out of cultures that introduced them to this discipline early on. A lot of these kids have been in other cultures. They've been in competition since they were little children. And I found out for many of our young people, high school was the first time they even submitted applications to be in competitions. And so this was kind of the impetus for starting the SAPA program. It started out just a workshop, a simple workshop to help our young kids be strong, be confident, to know the psychological aspects of competing and going and presenting themselves. That's kind of how it started.
It's kind of like artist development. A lot of times they really don't even know how to introduce themselves on stage. And I think that was one of the things that that you addressed and helped them with. How about the Music Center Spotlight Awards? You mentored young artists there.
Well, we got very active. And see, my concern was when I went to these competitions, I saw very few young African-American students.
Yeah.
Not as many Latino students. And that was my concern because I knew we had the talent. I knew we had the ability, but our kids were not being connected to these programs and these opportunities.
Right.
And so I started traveling around to different organizations. I said, well, how come there's not any African-American kids here? And I got the same response from many of the programs. They're just not showing up. And so we started an outreach program to find and identify our young people and connect them directly into some of these opportunities, because the opportunities have been out there and they are out there.
Yes.
Our issue was getting our kids involved.
Well, you know, I think one of the things you have going for you, Billy, is that not only are you a wonderful jazz musician and you've toured internationally and you've worked the club scene everywhere. I know you were born in New York, in Tarrytown, and then you went to school down in Georgia, right? In Atlanta.
Yes. I went to Morehouse.
Morehouse. And then you came up here, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, but you can see Billy in Clint Eastwood's film, Bird.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you had a little cameo.
That was a great experience. And it was a learning experience. I learned a lot on that about Charlie Parker and the music of that period.
Yes, that was a good movie.
Yeah.
And as a clinician, you have that book out, The Gigging Musician.
You know, I used to write a lot of articles for the jazz scene early on. And most of them were just observations and complaining about this and complaining about that. And I got a call from a magazine that was quite popular several years ago called Gig, the Gig magazine.
Oh yeah, I remember Gig.
The Gig magazine. And they called me and they asked me if I wanted to write an article.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because I had never really thought about being a writer per se, as far as being a formal columnist. And I was afraid that I would never have enough material to write about music and jazz and being on the road and experiences and whatnot. And I wrote an article every month for Gig magazine.
I read those. They were very informative.
it was called The Road Warrior. And I wrote for that magazine every month for about 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when they sold that magazine and it the commitment ended, I still had a list of topics that I had never touched. So it was really amazing. So all of these things have been a learning process for me. That experience in writing that book was received very well. A lot of teachers used it as a basic text, and it was just a compilation of interviews that I had done, and then ideas out of my own head about what you should do and but it was basic, just to help people with basic issues that you face being a working musician.
But we needed that. The young music community, it goes right back to working with youth again, because it gives them an insight from a mentor who's been there, done that.
Yes, yes. And, that's what it was about.
And the thing I love about you, Billy, is you have worked in so many genres. I bet a lot of people, a lot of people don't know you're on that first Gap Band record.
Oh,
with Charlie
Wilson.
Yeah.
Big Gap. My name is right at the top. And that was some heavy R&B. I was really fortunate because being a self-taught pianist, there was a lot of limitations. And I really didn't start taking it seriously and studying the way I should have always done until I had about 3 or 4 CDs out. Yeah. But during that time, I was able to meet a lot of musicians, and I actually was used in a lot of sessions back in the disco era on clavinet.
What?
I play, I don't know why. Well, I'm on a lot because I was able to play a lot of rhythms. I enjoyed the whole process.
Yeah.
I could go to a session and never get bored. A lot of the great guys, they'd be. I was sitting next to a lot of the fantastic pianists of the period. Okay. But all I was hired to was to play the clavinet, but in so doing, I just learned so much from the different producers and all the musicians that I was able to observe and see some of the things to do and some of the things not to do.
That's right.
And when I started producing things myself, I had a fairly good insight into what works and what doesn't.
And you've worked with people like Billy Paul that had that hit record, Me and Mrs. Jones.
Yeah. How many times did we play that? Yeah, we toured all over. The first job I had when I came out to Los Angeles was really by chance. I was working at a little club up in Hollywood with a trio, and Gloria Lynn was coming to town, and her pianist could not make it. And this was someone that I had listened to growing up.
Oh, she was great.
To have the opportunity, and she treated me so well because I really wasn't at that level as far as analyzing charts and ad-libbing and all of that. And she was very patient with me and gave me the opportunity to grow right there on the gig.
Yeah, the folks who live on the hill, man.
We became great friends. It didn't hurt that our birthdays were November 23rd. Same.
Oh, you had shared the same birthday. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we were buds.
And you worked with Randy Crawford?
Yeah, I worked with Randy and we
Street
toured.
Life?
Played that many times. We toured with the Crusaders.
Yeah.
And that was a great experience. That was a great experience also.
And then you can play blues. You worked with Esther Phillips, the queen of blues, as far as I'm concerned.
You know, there was just so much work during that period, during the 80s.
Yes,
the early 90s. There was a lot of work. There was tours all over the place. And I was just fortunate enough to be there and be in situations. I worked with little Esther Phillips, and that was an experience to be written about.
I know it was.
It was great. It was great.
Yeah.
But all of these experiences were learning experiences.
And that's why you can relate to young people, because you're not
Oh,
stuck. You can relate to hip hop, you can relate to
oh yeah.
R&B, you can relate to pop, and
Oh,
you're
yeah.
an amazing jazz musician. I mean, you currently had the Circle of Friends. That's a Los
Oh, yeah.
Angeles-based jazz group,
Yeah.
right, that you put together.
Yeah.
And you're a part of the Los Angeles Jazz Orchestra Unlimited, headed
Oh
by
yeah.
the great Kenny
With,
Burrell from my
yeah.
hometown, from Detroit. Yeah.
And you talk about a learning experience. That was
Ooh,
the
I
first
bet.
time I had played with a big band.
What?
That was the first time I had played with a big band. And it was just it's been a great experience, because when you work with great musicians, they understand deficits that someone might have. They understand problems. And if your attitude is right as a musician, they will be patient, they will mentor and foster you and teach you. And Bobby Rodriguez made me join that orchestra, because I had no intention of ever playing with a big band. I just didn't think it would be a comfortable thing for me.
Okay.
And sitting next to Kenny Burrell, who I idolized as a
Me
young
too.
person,
Yes.
as a young person, it's been like a dream for me.
Yes, absolutely.
Besides learning great music, I've had the chance to work with just some of the greatest musicians out on the West Coast.
Talk about some of those. Like, well, you know, you and I have a common interest in a songwriter I love, a blues guy, Willie Dixon. He gave you some advice, right? He gave you some.
I did an album. I did an album with Willie Dixon, the blues great.
Yes.
And that's a whole nother dimension.
Yes.
Because Willie Dixon, out of all these blues hits, he kind of instilled the idea of, also as academic and as sophisticated as jazz can become.
Yes.
Willie Dixon really convinced me of the importance of creating music for the common ear, so that anybody can appreciate and enjoy and understand it.
Yes.
And I learned that from Willie. And I also learned patience in the studio, how to wait and work and not push anything.
Yeah.
It was a great experience. He was a great, great teacher.
Yeah. And how about Linda Hopkins? That's another person you worked with and gave you some good advice.
Well, Miss Linda, I think that I learned more about being on the road and being a professional musician from Miss Linda Hopkins, and also Barbara Morrison. I learned a lot touring with Barbara Morrison. We toured together all over the world, and I learned a lot from Barbara. But one of the things that Linda did was Linda put me in situations that I just never thought, I never dreamed of. And even in the situations, I didn't think that I was able to do them. But Linda had more faith in me than I had in myself.
What situations?
Linda told me to be at the airport. We're going to Denver tomorrow. I get to the airport, and we're doing a concert. And so I had my piano book. I had the tunes and all of that sort of stuff. And when we got to Denver, they met me at the airport and handed me the conductor's book.
Oh.
And I said, no, I'm not the conductor. I'm the pianist. He said, no, you're the conductor. Miss Hopkins said, you're the piano conductor. You're the orchestra conductor. And I walk into this, it was Joan Rivers' concert.
Oh.
And I walk into this hall, and there's an orchestra there.
Oh.
I went up to my hotel room, I got on my knees.
I know you did.
I said, God, if you just let me through this experience, I will study music like I should have been studying. And I went back down, I was almost sick. I went back down. I told the orchestra that I am not a conductor, so my cues might be a little different. But if you follow what we're doing, we'll do it. And they didn't really know what to expect. We did the rehearsal. I went back up to the hotel and I kept praying. I went back down and I did the show. At the end of the show, when they introduced me, the orchestra stood up and applauded.
Oh my God, Billy.
They took me out to dinner.
What?
And they said that out of all of the conductors that they've had, I was one of only two that made the whole orchestra relax and enjoy the process.
And enjoy it. That's what you bring. You bring joy to the bandstand.
We had a ball. I had a ball. It was the first and the last time I ever did anything like that. But these were the kind of situations that Linda Hopkins put me in.
Yes.
And she didn't think anything about it. She said, oh, I know you can do it.
That's how we grow. That's how we grow.
And so for that, I'll always be indebted.
I know that the SAPA program is very important to you, and I want to get back to that. What year did you establish that program, and why did you create that program?
Well, we started this program, as I mentioned, as a just to work with kids for auditioning so that they could get scholarships and things like that. And I did not know that art and music had actually been taken out of the schools. I didn't know it. I had heard it, but it didn't. I couldn't absorb that. I just heard it, but I knew that's not real. You can't have a football game without a marching band.
Right.
As I was going into some of the schools to try to find young people for these scholarships, I found out that yes, indeed, we had a generation of young people that were going through the whole educational process without one music class, without one art class.
Horrible.
And we slowly morphed into providing classes for young people for free.
Okay.
We said, now we know that most of our kids in some of these environments really can't afford $50 an hour.
Right.
Some can't really get to a place to have lessons. So we approached the city, we set up some programs in some of the parks. We have 3 programs in Pasadena in all the parks.
Oh.
Piano lessons for kids. We've been there for 10 years.
No kidding.
I
didn't realize it had been a decade.
Well, we started SAPA in 2001.
Okay.
So it's going on 20 years that we've been working at it. And we've gone from venue to venue. We've worked with different organizations, Cultural Affairs, LAUSD, Pasadena. Now we're with the Compton schools. And so we've tried to be consistent. But the main thing is, I would rather a young person have 5 or 6 weeks of some kind of music instruction. Let that experience touch this young child. If we can just open up that artistic chakra so that a child or a family can make a decision to move them further. We didn't have music programs or curriculums, but we provided workshops to give the kids a chance to see what it's about.
So for all of you listening in, that website is www.sappa.net.
P as in Paul. And one of the things that we set that website up for was to be a resource to youngsters and families so that they could find programs on one page. They don't have to search through the internet. They don't have to deal with the counselor at school. They can go right to the SAPA program, and music competitions and scholarship competitions and opportunities are listed.
Yes.
On the page.
Simple. www.sap as in Paul, PA.net. So you're also the founder and executive director of the Watts Willowbrook Conservatory and the Youth Symphony Project. So how did that come about? That's a whole nother thing.
Yes, this was really a great situation, a great opportunity. A gentleman named Les Brown, who was the director of the Boys and Girls Clubs in Watts, called me one day and said, we want to start a music program. And so we sat. I said, well, I did not approach music correctly. As a young person, I didn't study music. I had a lot of deficiencies. It has affected my career. It's affected my appreciation of what I do. It's affected everything. I want to make sure that our young people avoid that.
Yes.
So I'm only interested in teaching young kids the basics, the theory. They can make their own decisions as to which way they want to move with their music. But my responsibility is to make sure that our young people get a foundation.
That's right.
A foundation from which to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I'm not interested in coming in at this point and teaching hip hop or jazz or anything. I want to teach kids I want to give kids the basics that's going to help them so that they can play anything.
Right.
He said, well, that's good. Let's start a symphony.
He said, let's start a symphony?
Yeah. He said, let's start a program like that.
Yeah.
We canvassed the community. We had meetings for about 3 or 4 months just to see if this would be feasible, just to see where the interest level was. We talked with parents and groups and whatnot, but there was something that happened before that. And this is why this was so unique. I was in a coffee shop out here in Pasadena, and I was, the lady that owned it, Jones Coffee, she gave me a video. I took the video home and I sat it on the dresser. It sat there for about 6 months. This was before the Watts call. And one Sunday, I didn't have anything to do. I put the video in, and it was about the El Sistema program in Venezuela.
Mm.
And halfway through that program, I was in tears.
Yeah.
Because I saw what music had done to transform a whole country.
Yes.
A whole country. And I said to myself, well, now, if they can use classical music to transform a whole generation, a whole country, I know we can put a program together that's going to touch kids in Los Angeles. And there were a lot of great programs, there were a lot of great youth orchestras and whatnot, but there wasn't anything in Watts.
Okay.
There wasn't anything in Compton.
Yes.
There wasn't anything feasible in South Los Angeles. And just as that Venezuela program was built to service kids in juvenile detention, orphans, they
made a lot of their instruments, didn't they, in that program? That was an amazing program.
They started with that, but they got a lot of support from the government. Yeah. And they have youth orchestras all over. And I said, let's try it. So when I got that call from the Boys and Girls Club, I said, this must be the direction we're supposed to go in. And we met with Charles Dickerson, who has probably the finest youth orchestra in the country, urban youth orchestra, the inner city youth orchestra, and Les Jones. And we sat down and we formatted a program and we started, and it's been going ever since.
That's fabulous. Well, I know we're winding this down, but who are some of the other great musicians that have inspired you?
Well, I came up in Buffalo, New York, and at the time, the drinking age was 18, and they had little draft cards. So, as young people, we were sneaking in to nightclubs at a very early age, being exposed to the music of some of the great musicians who always came through Buffalo, all the great musicians. And I was at home, and Nat King Cole, I got to tell you about Nat King Cole and his influence on me. I snuck out. I was about 14 or 15 years old. Nat King Cole was touring and they were having a party for him at a home not too far. I snuck out of my house and I went down to see him. I just wanted to see him.
Yeah.
And I peeked in the door and it was crowded in there. He was touring with this chorus called the Young Americans and whatnot, and all the newspaper people. And for some reason, he saw me peeking through the door and he left the people who he was talking to, and he came over and he asked me, what's my name? He said, come on in here. And I came in and he said, well, I said, my name is Billy and I just enjoyed it. I said, my father's a minister just like yours. And we were talking and he talked to me for about 2 or 3 minutes. And I remember looking back and all of the reporters were waiting for him.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And he took time with you.
Time, but that impacted me.
Yeah.
That impacted me. And I remember how I felt. And I've always, everywhere I go, I always try to make it a point to touch people. If they take time to come out to see me perform, I should take time to find out who they are and say hello. Some people call that work in the room, but I call it mutual respect.
That's right. And we need that. Need that as entertainers, and it builds a following.
Of course. Teddy Edwards was another gentleman when I first came out to Los Angeles. I had the opportunity to play with him. The piano player didn't show up or something like that, and he had this all-star group. So the owner of the club, the Tiki.
Oh, the Tiki Room. I remember the Tiki Room off of Crenshaw, Western or someplace.
He said, Teddy, there's a young guy here. Why don't you try him out? Well, I played some tunes and I was just stumbling through them. And instead of Teddy and Cat Anderson and Leroy Vinegar was playing.
Leroy Vinegar, yeah. Great bassist.
Instead of Teddy just canceling on me and getting somebody who was qualified, he started mentoring me and invited me over to his home. Wow. And was teaching me. From that, I learned the importance and the relevance of mentorship, of taking a young person that might not be that prepared, and instead of discouraging, encouraging and teaching. And that has kind of stuck with me.
So who are some of the piano players you listen to? Sometimes when I listen to you, I hear a little Gene Harris. Did you listen to him a lot?
Yeah, I came up with that. And
okay, me too. The three sounds, right?
And Ahmed Jamal. And,
yes, Poinciana.
Yeah, all of these things, we came up with.
Yeah.
We came up with, but, there's so many fantastic musicians.
Yeah.
It's hard. And I like certain musicians for certain things.
Yeah.
Some are fluid, some run, some soulful, some are abstract. A friend of mine who I think is one of the most fantastic musicians, named Billy Childs.
Oh, yeah.
We get together and chat. But I tell him that I think that he is one of the greatest musicians because he doesn't just play piano. He does that. But he has stretched his teaching and his production all the way into the classical realm.
Yeah.
And I tell Charles all the time, I think you're a genius. He doesn't think he is.
I think he is also. Absolutely.
Think he's a genius. And you have people like that, a gentleman named Tamir Handelman.
Oh, fabulous.
One of the most efficient musicians in the world. I had a chance to produce a project with Tamir for a young vocalist from Korea. And I saw a pianist that performed almost just perfectly.
Yeah, very sensitive, and he listens. Yeah.
And it showed me what I should strive for. But I've got to say, my most favorite pianist right now, is a young lady named Yuko Mabuchi.
Okay, she's pretty fabulous. Yes, she is. She's pretty fabulous.
That's my favorite.
Well, Billy, it's been such an honor to speak to you and be a part of this ceremony that holds you up in the spotlight for the whole world to see what Not only a great musician you are, my brother, but what a beautiful soul you are. And thank you for giving back to the community, for giving back to Watts, for coming down to where the Black folks are, for not growing out of the community where we all grew up, you know, where we were, and to mentor, because we don't have music and art in our schools and our public schools anymore. And for you to take that on, I have to salute you, along with the California Jazz Foundation and along with the Jazz Journalists Association. We salute you and love you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a hand. Put your microphone on. Put your microphone on. Hey, Bob.
I just saw my friend Bob.
How you doing, baby? Yeah.
Bob in Atlanta.
But I have to say one thing. Billy and I met each other way back in 1963 at Morehouse College, and we've been the best of friends ever since. He and a guy named Vincent Seward, who was also from Buffalo.
Okay.
They had all the music monopoly. They would have their little bands, and we would just be so happy to go hear them play.
Okay.
And then,
in the very beginning.
Yep.
Hey, Bob.
Good to see you, Bob.
Yeah,
Michael
good to see you,
Dawson.
Bob. If there are any questions and anybody wants to
Congratulations,
ask,
Billy. You deserve it, man.
Thank you, Bob.
yes. Anybody want to chat with us on the Zoom group chat and ask Billy a question? Laverne
Michael
Davis
Dawson.
said to everyone, "Hi, Billy."
Yeah.
Hey, Miss Davis.
And Laverne, yes. But I just think, I want to thank everybody that's here and everybody that's not.
Yeah,
Because we can't do it without you.
we cannot.
I can't be a musician if I don't have somebody to try to inspire and make feel better. That's what our music is for.
Absolutely.
So we can't do what we do without you. And I give you thanks.
Yeah.
Congratulations, my friend.
Congratulations, Billy.
Congratulations, Billy.
Thank you.
I'd like to.
Congratulations, Billy.
Thank you.
All the best, man.
Michael, ask your question.
I just want to make a comment. We've been friends a long time. I have not known anybody as committed as you have been to young people and to music. And we've had lots of private conversations, and you've been ready to pull your hair out. You've been ready to pull your ears off. But you have allowed, and it's been years that we've had some serious face-to-face conversations. I have never seen anyone who has been as committed as you are. And you know, you will never be able to count the number of young people that you've impacted and the number of families that you've been impacted by your commitment. So this honor for you is well deserved without question at all. But you know what? At some point, I know you don't want it to just be another something on the wall. So we'll be here when you call. I'll be here when you call.
Thank you, Mike.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
Thank you.
Billy. People have questions.
Can you hear me? Can I say a word? Can I say a word?
Yes, where are you?
Oh,
hello. Marvin. That was Marvin.
Marvin Anderson. I'm here because I also is a Morehouse man. And I was a senior when Billy was a freshman.
He was the class president.
We established a relationship that has not been as vigorous as I would like over the years, but I've always treasured the friendship that I've had with Billy and his incredible, as an incredible musician and working with kids. He is living out the true Morehouse code, and he's giving back to his community. He's making his community better than what he found it. And I wanted to get here earlier, but as you know, right now, the Twin Cities is undergoing a horrendous experience. And my wife called, and they are rioting very, very close to our home. boarded up.
I'm sorry to hear that. I'm
It is
sorry to
very,
hear
yeah,
that.
it was very sad, but I wanted to take a few moments out to pay my respects to Billy Mitchell.
Thank you.
He's
Thank
an
you so
incredible
much.
young man, and I look forward to seeing him when we can travel again and hear his music in person. Tell all the
Thank you so
Morehouse
much,
people-
Marvin.
Yeah, I'll tell everybody from Morehouse that you're living up. You have the banner high, Billy, and we're all proud of you from Morehouse College. And
Thank you.
you understand what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yes.
Huh?
Thank you.
You all are making my friend cry.
Yes,
Stop
sir.
it. Come on,
Morehouse
Clifford.
man.
What do you let Cliff? I'm sorry. Here, Sandra B. Greenstein. Let them say something.
Greg Poirier.
Hi, Billy.
Oh, hi, Greg.
How you doing,
Yes.
DeeDee? How you doing?
Hi, Greg.
What a wonderful, wonderful interview. It was so human. It was so real. It was so down to earth. Billy, you are an angel. Truly. You are, in my opinion, you're one of the best human beings on the planet in terms of what you have given. And it is an honor to be part of this. It's an honor for me to be part of this.
Me too, Greg. I agree.
Take it in. Take it in, my friend. Take it in, my brother.
Thank you, Greg.
Bob, hello.
Hey, Greg, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Bob. How you doing?
I miss you guys.
Well, you know.
DeeDee, I miss you, baby.
We miss you too.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful. This is wonderful. This is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, this was great.
Greg and I go back a long time. When I was touring with Sarita, he was the producer. He was the music director.
She was one of my favorite vocalists.
Yeah.
Great lady. Great lady
Great
and
lady,
songwriter.
great lady. This is wonderful. This is so good to see all of you guys. It's great.
You too, Greg. How about Myra? Did you have?
Thank you so much for your words and your inspiration. You are inspirational.
Thank you, Greg.
You know, great leaders don't dictate, they inspire. And truly, in my opinion, you're truly one of the most inspirational people on the planet.
Well said. Well said. Myra, did you want to say something?
Yes, I would like to say, because I met Billy years ago at Nucleus Nuance in those days.
Susan
Great club. Wasn't that a great club? Anyway, as an educator, my admiration for what has been accomplished with the LA youth is, I'm just nearly speechless. It's wonderful how many thousands of people he's touched, because it's not just the kids, it's the gift that has been given to the family to have one of their children accomplish something. It's that belief that they can do something more that's just, it's fantastic. And you've done it, Billy.
Yes, we got a message from Linda Sam of the Living Legend Foundation congratulating you, Billy, and I know that you're one of her living legends. Leonard Lucier, am I saying that right, or Lucier? Hi, Billy.
Yeah, from
Congratulations on your award. Your family is very proud of you. Alicia Robinson, congratulations, Mr. Mitchell, from Symphonia Youth Orchestra of Atlanta, Georgia. Oh, yes. LaQuita Chambly, congratulations, Mitch.
Oh, yeah, LaQuita.
Yeah, so anyway, we're so appreciative.
Congratulations, Mitch.
Is that Gail? Gail Ross, one of the premier artists of our generation.
Right, Miss
I'm a
Gail.
painter, but I just want to say congratulations, dear heart. You deserve every bit of it. I remember doo-wops on a corner, but you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you, Gail. Great to see you.
I'm proud of you. I'm
Thank
very
you.
proud of you.
Thank you, Gail.
You're welcome.
Thank
honey.
you.
God bless. Davis asks if, Billy, do you continue to give students instruments, or are they on loan?
They're on loan. We started out giving instruments away. After a couple of years, we noticed how much inventory we had actually lost because the youngsters move and stop the program sometimes. So now we will loan if a family really needs it. But now we have a relationship with a factory in Beijing, and we're able to sell these to the families now for moderate price. Very low price.
Great.
So,
We're going to need
so the
lots of
kids,
that
so the kids own their own instruments.
after the pandemic.
Michael Dolphin wanted to know whether school district is partner or offers support.
We partnered with Compton, with the Compton School District. We're in 3 Compton schools right now, and hopefully we'll be in many more after the system revives itself. Everything's kind of up in the air, but Compton has been very supportive. If we can get that kind of relationship with LAUSD, I think we could do a lot of good things.
Edie, do you want to have some more words about the California Jazz Foundation?
Well, it's my favorite subject, so it's hard to say just a few words. But we're very proud of what we've been able to accomplish, but it's just a drop in the bucket. We need support. We don't get support from anybody except our people. And our people are very supportive, but they don't have the kind of assets that we need, especially in this situation we all find ourselves in. We don't get corporate grants. Corporations, most corporations just don't care about jazz musicians. So we're very proud of our Greg Poirier, who's our music director. We're very, very happy. Yeah, that's him. Very, very happy that Michael Dolphin has just joined our board. Oh, great. And I've only been after him since 2006. So I finally got him. And so anything that anybody can do to help, small or large, contacts with people who we can't get contacts with would be very helpful. When we're able to have our gala again, we will have an auction. Any contacts that you have for auction items of value would be wonderful. And so I just want to say how proud I am again of Billy Mitchell. And it's such a thrill to see how many other people recognize and acknowledge all of the things that he's done. I too think he's inspirational. And I'm just so happy to have him in my life. And thank you, Howard, for doing this. Thank you, DeeDee. That was a wonderful interview. Wonderful.
Thank you. Well, that's my friend, and we're easy with each other.
Yeah, that's obvious. That's obvious. But thank you for letting me be part of it.
It's our pleasure. And DeeDee, yes, thank you so much for that wonderful interview.
Thank you.
Thank you for your support. Mitch, Billy, it's been great to have you and to be able to celebrate you. You're a jazz hero. Edie's a jazz hero. I see Barbara Brighton did sign on, and she's a jazz hero. DeeDee, you're a jazz hero, not yet got an award, but you're right in line there. And really, thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. And please continue to support the California Jazz Foundation. If you want to support the Jazz Journalists Association, that's also very deeply appreciated. We are about 200 writers, photographers, videographers, broadcasters. We are international. We are a 501c3 nonprofit also, so donations are tax deductible. And we do a lot of work to connect all the jazz journalists and see that they have a voice in this ecosystem. We try to keep views and news about jazz in the public sphere so people don't just sleep on it. And thank you all for being here tonight. It's been a pleasure to have you. And we will be doing more of these kinds of events in the future. The JJA is looking to do a large Zoom party for the people who won our voting awards, the instrumentalists on the 2020 JJA Jazz Awards, which is the 25th year of the Jazz Awards. So, with that, I also want to thank somebody who you've not seen on this call, but we couldn't have done it without him, and that's Vedran Rasibovic, who is behind the scenes. Vedran Basib, oh no. Vedran.
I call him my prince.
He did a fantastic job on helping us through this technology.
Engineering, yes, he really helped us a lot.
And we've spent a whole day with him.
I'd like to say something a little more about the California Jazz Foundation, because Edith is so modest about what that organization does. And I want to say that any of you out there who are corporate and can get corporate sponsoring, she helps musicians when they are really down and out. I'm talking about, I had a friend that was losing her piano. It was in storage and she wasn't working steady, and that was her life. And her life music was on that grand piano. And they helped her, they saved that piano. I have friends who needed dental work and couldn't afford it. Her organization gave money to those people to get their mouth right. And it might sound like a small thing, but anybody who has really had to have serious dental work knows that it's very expensive, and that as entertainers, we want to look a certain way on stage and present ourselves a certain way. She's helped people who were homeless, musicians who were so down on their luck they were living in their cars. She helped them get into apartments and housing. So spread the word about the California Jazz Foundation. I just think that she is an angel, and her organization are made up of people who do it out of their hearts. You know, they're not getting paid to do it. They do it because they care about jazz. And that's one thing that is our indigenous American art form, and we must keep it alive. That's why I write about it. We must keep it alive. So if you know any corporate sponsors, please refer them to the California Jazz Foundation.
Oh, and also refer your friends who are musicians. I forgot to say one important thing. Our social worker is part of the EAC, which is the Entertainment Assistance Cooperation.
I didn't hear that. Can you say it one more time? Can you say that one more time?
EAC, the Entertainment Assistance Cooperation. They are not a formal organization, but they have their every month, and they actually, when whoever opens a file first from an applicant, once they do their due diligence, they then call the other social workers, and they'll say, if it's us, they'll say, the California Jazz Foundation has done their due diligence on this person, and we have paid their rent for the month of May. Can you pick up the rent for the month of June? And you have no idea what a blessing that is for people who are, when they're in this situation, they're just overwhelmed. And these applications are daunting, let me tell you, even ours is. And so to spare them from having to make 5 or 6 applications is a blessing. And we are all able to do that. And it's not me, for God's sake. You know, I really appreciate those words, DeeDee, but it's not me, you know, I just started it. It's everybody who's part of it. It's you guys, it's everybody.
Well, the president gets blamed. No pun intended.
So thank you. This was absolutely wonderful.
Been fun.
Thank
and
you.
Thank you.
also Luther Hughes is sending greetings. Billy, I learned a lot about you today. You're a very special human being. I'm proud to know you. Thank you all for putting this together. And I think with that, I'll also remind you, if you care to see this again, or you want to send people to see it, this will be posted on the Jazz Journalists Association's YouTube channel. That'll probably take us 2 days to get up, but we'll have it up by the weekend. So thank you again for everything. Edie McNeil, Edie Bronston, Billy Mitchell, thank you all for coming tonight, and our friends on Facebook, watching on Facebook too. Thanks, you've been a great audience, and I hope we get to do this again sometime, or maybe even in person. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Thank
Howard.
you.
Thank you for being you.
Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye, Billy.
Yeah.
Hey, Dee. Yabba dabba 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 dabba.
How you been, DeeDee?
I'm hanging in here.
Looking good, baby.
They have a number?
Hanging in for an old bird, baby. Still chirping.
Dabba 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 dabba.